This is what I wish I told myself 3 years ago when I was starting out as a no-code developer. My whole life, I followed exactly the path that was told to me. I went to a good school, I studied finance, and I got a job in a finance company where I was literally an Excel slave. I was sitting there every day editing Excel sheets, showing them to my boss, and it was like really bad. I would come home from work, I would work till 8 p.m., come home and literally look forward to watching TV or distracting myself as much as possible until I would pass out at 1 a.m. I would wake up in the morning, get to the office, and just have as many espresso shots as possible to get myself through the day. I had terrible bosses, but on the outside, it seemed like I was doing really well because this was a very prestigious job. And so from the outside in, everyone thought I was doing amazing, but from the inside, I was really struggling and it was very unsustainable emotionally. And I reached a point where I was at a pivotal juncture where I needed to decide, do I want to go out on my own and quit and let everyone externally down, or do I want to stay and toughen it out? And it's a hard decision, and I see people in life making those two types of decisions, and it could work out both ways. But in my case, obviously, I went out on my own, I became a no-code developer, and I really want to emphasize in this video everything I would have told myself just starting out in this space, and also just to motivate people to literally try something on their own, because it's easier than you think to pave your own path, especially in this day and age. And I really just want to lay out the principles if you do want to lay your own path and go out on your own in the no-code space. Let's dive in. The first principle I would follow is pick one tool. This is actually a device I did end up following. I'm a full-time Bubble developer. I have very large clients. I've been doing it for 3 years. And I think it is so important that you don't try to learn like 10 no-code, low-code tools. This could also apply to coding frameworks, but I think just picking one increases your chances of success dramatically. And I'll walk this through with you via scenario. For example, let's say you were on the flip side, you were trying to build an app and you wanted to hire a developer, and you picked a tool like Flutterflow, for example. It's a low-code mobile app builder. Would you pick the person who maybe did like a few Flutterflow projects that are unfinished, but is also a Bubble developer, but is also another no-code tool developer? Or would you pick the developer who's been grinding on Flutterflow for 3+ years? Obviously, you'd pick the one who has been grinding on it for 3 years. And you should really stick to one tool, and over time, with that focus, you will be a lot more successful than if you're wishy-washy and jumping from tool to tool to tool. I remember when no-code first started, it was all the rage. 100 no-code tools to build your business. I stuck to Bubble. I only know Bubble. I know some other tools a little, but I'm really an expert on Bubble. And so you may be wondering, okay, I take your advice. How do I choose a tool? For everyone, it's different. It could be you have a background in backend development. You want to choose a backend tool. It could be you're a designer and you want to choose a front-end tool. There are 3 points I would look at when choosing a tool. Number 1 is that you can deliver a complete project to a client with just that tool. You don't want to have to learn a tool in which you have to learn 3 other tools just to deliver something to a client. And the idea here is that you want to provide value to someone as quick as possible. You want to learn one thing and then be able to market it and make money from it. So I think this rules out some niche backend tools, but there's so many tools that can do this, like Bubble, Webflow, etc. The second thing I would look at is that there's growth in the tool, and you can really see that based on the community. If you see a growing, thriving community, that's a really good sign. Because you'll be able to get answers for your questions a lot quicker. It's just going to be easier to learn. And the second thing is it means that it's growing. So I would look for 5 to 10 posts on the forum or wherever they have Q&As a day, and that will be like a good indicator that the tool is actually doing well. The last thing is you have to be passionate about what they're doing. You can see obviously their mission, vision, etc., or you can watch a video with their founder if they have one, but really being aligned with where the tool is going and what they are aspiring to accomplish is so important. And I think for me, I'm extremely aligned with where Bubble is going. So making sure that your values and what you want from a tool is aligned with where the tool is going, so you don't have surprises. And because you're dedicating a few years, if you're going to really become an expert on it, to learning it. So you need to be optimistic about the direction it's going. My second piece of advice is be patient. This seems so simple, but it's actually very hard. And I personally struggled with this. So when I started learning Bubble, I was exploring all kinds of business opportunities and trying to start my own thing. And I stumbled into Bubble, and this was after like a few months of really just falling on my face. I was doing grocery delivery on the side, which I was terrible at, and I was relying on other people to support me, which just really compounded my stress. I was really reaching my last straw in terms of just my emotional capacity and of being lost. I was all day on the computer looking for something to do. I tried to code multiple times. It didn't work out. A lot of you may be in this situation where you're really lost and maybe you found no code, and that's where I was. I found Bubble and I was like, I have to make this work. Like, there is no option for me at the moment. The only other option was going back to finance, which I knew was going to be miserable for me. So that's what really helped me stick with Bubble. Is I spent every day in the editor 2, 3 months, 4 months. I did a boot camp for an agency that I wanted to get into. About 4 months in, I took the exam to get into this freelance program by an agency. That was like my ultimate goal. That's what I wanted to do. And I flopped. I could not solve the exam. It was 2 or 3 day exam. It was an exercise and I couldn't do it. I was so embarrassed. I was literally crying, telling my partner at the time that I couldn't solve it. And honestly, getting that rejection was terrible. I was at the point where I was going to give up. I realized the truth is I didn't have many options. And so at that point, I doubled down. I've already invested so much in this. The tool is doing well. People are succeeding in it. And I continued with learning the tool. And I think it took not long after that of just learning the basics and improving on what I failed in on that assessment, which was, in my case, database design. And after 6 months, I got an opportunity by LinkedIn for a Bubble project at a large IT company. And that really kicked off my career. But it took 6 months before I got the first project. For many of you, you will probably fall off very quickly, either because you see the tool and it's not for you, or you don't think it's going in a good direction, or just life happens. You have other commitments. For those of you that are really committed, and it doesn't matter what tool it is, and you stick to something for at least 6 months, which I would say is the bare minimum to actually getting good at a tool, comment on this video, put a marker in your calendar for 6 months from now, and I would love to hear from you if you can do that. I know how hard it is because I've been there, but I honestly believe every single one of you can stick to it and be patient and not have any delusions about how long it's going to take, because the best people in the space are sometimes not the ones who are the best, but the ones who are the last ones standing. My third piece of advice is realizing that your skills are more valuable than your idea. When I started out, I had the grand vision for this product hunt type of app that was going to change the world. And if you're like me, you can imagine already being on stage, thousands of people cheering for you, and you saying, hey, I thought of this idea when I was XYZ. And you can already think of customers. Maybe you've saved up some money to pursue this idea, and you're 100% certain that it's going to be the next big thing. For me, at least, it didn't work. And it's not that it didn't work after getting a few users, it's that it had 0 users and was not working at all. But I gained so much experience from that build process where I knew a little bit about how much I don't know in bubble development and the areas I need to improve on. And I learned a lot from the community and where the community hangs out. At that point, it was on Twitter. I just started following the trends in the space and found an opportunity to become a bubble developer. That wasn't even in my lexicon or something that was on my mind beforehand. The truth is that most ideas fail, and you probably know this, and you may be thinking you're the outlier, and you may as well be. But I think it's important to just focus on your skills because it compounds. Even if your idea doesn't succeed, you have the skills to A, pursue new ideas, and B, you can provide value to other people. So you have a backstop. And not only that, you'd be surprised at how good you can get in a short period of time of 4 to 6 months. And it's not like you have to burn all your money on a developer, etc. You can do things yourself and actually have power. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to get a developer to build you something. I've been there, and hopefully you as a developer will be less frustrated, but it's just a hard process. And I think having that agency, having that ability will give you more confidence. At least for me, just having the skills opened up so many opportunities. There's no way I could imagine I would be where I am now with the caliber of clients that I'm at 3 years ago. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to code. I couldn't code. I couldn't build anything beyond a Wix or Squarespace website. And now I'm building these very complex platform for very large clients with real revenue. And I think every one of you watching this video can get there if they just take that time when building out their first idea and focus on the process and the journey rather than the outcome or the idea itself. My fourth piece of advice is find a niche and do it your way. When I started in no code, the hottest thing was building a SaaS tool, getting a few users. A SaaS tool is an online product that has recurring revenue, and then flipping it on some business flipping site. And I thought about it and I looked into the people doing this, and it just didn't really seem like it was for me. I felt like a lot of the advice online at the time was just different versions of get rich quick using no code, and I knew it really wasn't for me. One book that really inspired me was the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, where he talks about having a monopoly or just a business without competition as a way of actually getting value over the long run, like being the only social media company, etc. And I apply that to my personal skill set. Thinking about your skills as how do you stand out? How are you different than every other developer? And that doesn't mean that you have to be the best bubble developer or the best developer in general. It just means that you have to pick something that provides value that not everyone else is chasing. If it's obvious and there's YouTube videos about it and there's so many people trying to do the same thing, I would say an example right now is AI bubble apps. It's probably oversaturated. It doesn't mean you won't be successful. It's just going to be a lot harder versus just picking something else that maybe you're more interested in the long run. The best way of getting started with that is just looking online for problems people have, whether it's questions on forums, Reddit, etc., and then going deep into one that you find interesting and helping people out for free. That will give you the credibility for them to later pay you for that help. You will learn as you go and be able to build a reputation in that space over time. For me, I happen to stumble through my jobs into white labeling bubble apps. And that's something that I know is a unique skill that I can provide value with. Also, I happen to be good with Google APIs. I have very high caliber clients and I do decently well with this skill, and I just ignore all the trends around me. And this applies to you too. If you find something that you're good at, that people want, that people pay you for, you can ignore all the noise. It's so much more freeing to know that you don't have to keep up. You don't have to jump from trend to trend, from the newest thing. You could just do it. The internet is a free place and you can create your own value how you want. There's no rules. The opportunities are endless and it will be much bigger than what you expect. You may expect that it's a small niche, but you may get a client that pays you 6 figures to build that thing. I don't have that, but I've heard of many stories and know people who have been in that situation. And pick a niche, do it your way, and stop listening to everyone else. You can make your own path even within the bubble space. My final piece of advice is to start small. Like many of you, I have very grandiose visions to build the next Facebook, Instagram, etc. And the reality is that's probably not going to happen. So it makes much more sense to start small. And it's also much easier to focus on, for example, learning responsive design or the bubble editor rather than focusing on a big goal of trying to build the next Facebook or trying to raise money or get into YC or whatever your grand vision is. It makes a lot more sense to focus on the next thing. When I was learning bubble, I really just did the basics. I started with, okay, I don't understand, for example, how specific workflows work. So I literally learned how to do that. I didn't understand what a database was. So I just watched some tutorials and learned that. And then I didn't really know what option sets were. So I spent a day or two learning what option sets were. I just followed the next basic approach to becoming a bubble developer. Yes, I did have grandiose visions. Yes, I had big product ideas. Yes, I wanted to, make it. I think I really underestimated what those basics over time compounded to be, and the skill set I really developed from just doing one small step at a time. Or for example, choosing just bubble. Like I didn't try and learn 100 no-code tools. Over time, you will build a lot of skill, and the compounding effect of that effort will only be seen a while after you're doing it. Think of it almost as autopilot. Like every day I'm just in the bubble editor. For me, I've literally been in the bubble editor every single day other than certain times where I was sick for 3 years straight. There hasn't been a day where I wasn't in the bubble editor. In summary, all you need to become a no-code pro is stick to one tool, pick one that you're passionate about, that has a good community and is growing. Be patient, give yourself at least 6 months of working with that one tool before having any expectations. Realize your skills are more valuable than your idea, so don't overestimate your idea. Make sure you focus on developing skills as you're building. Find a niche and do it your way. Stop listening to everyone else and pave your own path in no code or low code. And lastly, start small, focus on daily habits, and keep your ideas narrow and focused. That is all my tips. I'm so excited to see what all of you build, and feel free to leave any other tips or ideas in the comments.